Howdy! Welcome to Telecreations. In this video we will be doing part 1 of technically 3 for a calm and relaxed talk about the Resident Evil films. In this first part, because I can't be bothered making one whole long-ass hour-and-a-half video about this franchise, and I'm running out of footage to edit, so I'm like, look, I don't have that long of a period of time to be able to film, and these hours of watching these films is very, it takes a lot of my time, so I'm just doing this as a three-parter. The first part, I'll be talking about Resident Evil Apocalypse, and Resident Evil Extinction. In part 2, I will be talking about Resident Evil Afterlife, Retribution, and the final chapter. And as a bonus third video, I'll be talking about The Generation, Damnation, and Vendetta, which are 3 animated films, which I believe are all about an hour and a half each. Yeah, literally. They're all literally an hour and a half each. Almost. So, yeah. Let's talk about the Resident Evil franchise. So, first, an introduction. The Resident Evil films, which star action hero Milla Jovovich, is a franchise helmed by Paul W.S. Anderson, not not the good ones. These are the 2 Paul Andersons that you don't. This is one of the 3 Paul Andersons you don't want to make films with, because his films are usually pretty I think one of his best is like Event Horizon, and that's like one of his only good ones because the rest are like Mortal Kombat. These ones, I think he did the Monster Hunter one that came out like at the start of 2021. I actually watched that. It was fine. It was just, I like big monster movies, so it was fine. So I really wanted to watch this franchise because I have watched, I think, the first 4 of these films and 1 of the animated features. I think I've got Damnation here on DVD, but I didn't have any of the Resident Evil films, and I wanted to get the set because it was like $75 and you could get another set for 50% off. So I got like the Monsters on DVD for like $18, which is cool. So that worked out in my favour to some degree. I remember growing up watching these films, the first 4 at least. We'd get them like either a pirated copy or loan a DVD from, the bookstore, the library, or from a friend or whatever. And they were alright, they're the kind of horror films you watch when you're younger and you're like, oh god, it's scary, but it's just cheap-ass jump scares and cheap uses of tension, and you mostly end up just being there for the cool, stylistic action scenes, and mostly, if you're that age, Milla Jovovich usually half-naked. So, they are directed by her now husband, and written by her now husband, so, yeah, there is that. But yes, this franchise started in 2002, I believe, and ended in 2016. So, yeah, I do believe that the animated ones are more trying to be more focused on the actual game narrative, like to take more characters from the games and be more faithful and whatever, because obviously the live-action ones were too focused on being over-the-top apocalyptic crap. But let's dive into it with, of course, our first film, Resident Evil. Now, these are based on Capcom horror games, which you probably already know. I haven't played a single one of these games. I think it was like Resident Evil 7. I watched like Markiplier play on YouTube. I'm not big on the franchise. I don't care much for horror games in particular. Like, I love Alien Isolation, but I have hardly played it because I don't care much to play horror games. It's just my thing. My brother's the guy who plays the horror games. I watch the horror films. Or at least I watch the actual good horror films. Nevertheless, in 2002, Resident Evil came about. It is a Paul W.S. Anderson film starring Milla Jovovich, I used to call her Djokovic. I don't know why. There's two V's in her name. It's Jovovich. Anyway, it also stars Michelle Rodriguez because she's fucking awesome. So if you're gonna have a female-led action film, you have to have Michelle Rodriguez. I do believe this was also written by Paul W.S. Anderson. Yeah, so written, directed, and produced by him. So they really gave him the whole thing. What does the plot say? I'm looking at the letterboxd here. When a virus leaks from a top-secret facility, turning all the resident researchers into ravenous zombies and their lab animals into mutated hounds from hell, the government sends an elite task force to contain the outbreak. Alice and Rain are charged with leading the mission. They only have 3 hours before the pathogen becomes airborne and infects the world. So, I will mention a few things from that. Firstly, the fact that they're saying Alice is Rain the actual? Oh yeah, Michelle Rodriguez. Yeah, they're not the ones who are leading the mission. Firstly, Alice is discovered there, and she's actually like, she wakes up. You start with her. She wakes up with amnesia. This is Mila Jovovich's character. She's the lead of the franchise, and she constantly struggles with either amnesia or superpowers. They're very relatable to the common person. So she wakes up in this abandoned mansion, and there's all this, obvious mise-en-scène about how she's married and whatever the fuck. She wakes up naked because why wouldn't you? And she gets attacked by a guy who is actually a cop, and all is good, and he's looking for his sister. And then this military bunch come in and take them, and they go to a train downstairs where there's this other guy who is actually Alice's husband, in a train, and then they go into the city, and they're all like suffering from amnesia except for the cop. The cop knows why he's there, because he's looking for his sister, because she works in the facility, which is all on the ground, which is underneath Raccoon City. I get it, it's a reference to the games. So, in terms of the rest of the plot, they go through the facility, discovered that it's full, it's very empty and whatever, they don't know where everyone is, it's only been a few hours since the whole thing went shut down. They then discover, they go through the Red Queen's traps, because this is also like a kind of practical action film, which is really cool. So it has that awesome laser scene with that laser hallway. Gotta admit, it's pretty cool. And that kills off a lot of your characters, including the actual leaders of the group. So then, of course, Rain and Alice do become the leaders of the group. But even though Alice doesn't really become the leader of the group until almost the end of the film, because she's still trying to figure out who she is and what the hell's going on. But they get to the Red Queen, who's an AI child who I don't know if she even pops up in the rest of the franchise. I'm pretty sure she does. I know that she has an equivalent White Queen twin sister, who's in the third film, who never shows up after the third film, and isn't even referred to as the White Queen. It's just, almost the same looking actress, but in a white fucking dress, and that's about it. Anyway, that's its own thing. They disable her, turn off all the electronics, and it wakes up all the zombies. And there's this whole room, laboratory, full of all these experiments that also be woken up, which look more like the creatures from the actual games, I guess. I don't know what the fuck they're called. They're creatures, they're not fun. So, yeah, they all reconvene, whatever, find out that there are zombies everywhere. They try to kill them, but this doesn't work, because, of course, why would you try to shoot someone? Why is it that... There's a weird thing in this franchise. Firstly, especially when they're in moments of they need to conserve ammo and whatever, or they're really... But then when they get angry because one of their friends is dying, they try to just shoot randomly at the zombies, rather than shoot them in the head, so they're just wasting their ammo. And then secondly, they really like to snap people's necks. Because I know that, there's a thing where it's oh, you have to disconnect, the spinal cord from the brain or whatever, but it's and they snap the necks of the zombies, and they do that a lot. And they really use cartoonish sound effects in these films for that kind of shit, and I'm why? Why do you want to snap a zombie's neck? I get it if you're in close combat, but why would you personally go up to a zombie and snap its neck when you either have a knife or a gun? So that's a thing that they do, and it's really weird. I guess it saves on blood and gore effects, and you can just use a cheap sound effect in post, so... Okay, that's probably why. Nevertheless, and then they pretty much have to fight the way out You know, they slowly become infected one by one, gets bitten, gets killed off, have to fight big monster creature because it, you know, this and that. Alice remembers who the fuck she is. She also remembers that she's some special op trained person who works for Umbrella, the big corporation that pretty much controls the world, who's creating this T-virus and whatever. So she's practically not a superhuman yet, but she does have, she's like practically like a martial arts fucking god. She's practically Neo from the Matrix, you know. And she becomes more like him throughout the rest of the films. Anyway, yeah, simple led simple. They just try to get the fuck out of there with the and try to find the antivirus. And then, you know, one by one they all get killed off. You got your big fights with your monsters and whatever. And then you're done. That's the movie. They get out, and then there's only two of them left. One who's infected, one who has the cure. She tries to apply the cure to him, but then, surprise, a bunch of people in masks come in and take them both away. And then Alice wakes up, and she's in an abandoned facility. She's also, again, naked. And it's Raccoon City, and it's been invaded by zombies. Hooray! Cut to the sequel. That's literally the first film. It seems overly convoluted, but it's pretty straightforward. You know, they want to disable the Red Queen to figure out what the fuck's going on, and then that accidentally unleashes all the zombies because it opens up all the doors and stuff because it turns off all the power because all the zombies were trapped in rooms, and then they have to fight their way out. And yeah, it's not a very well-rounded movie because it's clearly we want to make a sequel kind of movie, so there is that. Obviously, there's small character dynamics and character relationships, like the cop is looking for his sister, but the sister is a zombie, and you see her at the start of the film, because the start of the film is really cool, because it starts with all the scientists in the lab as someone who seems to have broken in and has, you know, destroyed one of the things, who turns out to be Alice's husband, has, you know, sabotaged the whole thing, and on his escape, he ends up falling asleep in the train carriage, so he thought he was far enough to escape, but he wasn't. That whole opening was great, and then you got the Alice part where it becomes more of a cliche kind of horror film. I don't care much for Alice being, like, super duper, look at me, I can punch and kick everyone. I like the dogs. Zombie dogs is cool. Sure. I mean, why not? You know, it's unpredictable as to what could happen until Alice starts flying in the air and kicking them into the fucking walls and shit, and then, yeah, okay, it gets really weird. The action is it's interesting. Like, it's not a bad film, it's just interestingly done. It's got a style to it, it tries to be something different from the zombie films, and it doesn't want to be too on the nose as to being a Resident Evil inspired film, despite having a name and whatever. Obviously, it doesn't use any of the camera angles like the games do and whatever, so it's interesting the way they develop it all. But let's take a look at my actual review. So I gave this film 3 out of 5 stars. When I get out of here, I think I'm going to get laid. Yeah, you might want to clean up a little first. That's my quote. And my review is simply the start of something ugly. Ugly with style. Yeah, I didn't really have much to say about this film in terms of an actual proper review. It's not bad. As a standalone film, it would have been great. It didn't really need this stupid ending of, oh, Raccoon City. But obviously they were like, oh, it's probably going to get heaps of money, so we'll do it anyway. So, like, if it doesn't, then, yeah. Tacked on anything is fucking stupid. Anyway, nevertheless, not a bad film. I wish Michelle Rodriguez had stayed around. That would have been great. I don't think she's in any more of the sequels, because she dies, simply put. So, I guess spoiler alert for a film that's like 19 years old, but there you go. There's not really much to say about this film. The zombies are fine. The locations are fine. It's all inside. It's quiet. It's dark. It's, you know, got a good atmosphere to it. It's not a consistent atmosphere, but it's not bad. It's pretty generic. So let's talk about Apocalypse. This one's the one I have a real gripe with. So, 2004, you get Resident Evil Apocalypse. Directed by Alexander Witt, which is his only directorial credit. So, there's that. Because he's like a second unit director and camera operator. So, yeah, it's kind of weird that he actually directed this film, but it's pretty much because Paul W.S. Anderson, who wrote the film, was tasked to direct it, but he was currently working on a different film at the time, so he pretty much was like, I feel like this was a poltergeist situation where, how Spielberg wrote the film but produced it and was like on set every now and again to make sure it was going on track. So while Toby Hooper was actually directing it, and I feel like it's the same with this one, except this one was more on the nose that it was not Alexander Witt directing it, but he definitely seems to have directed it because it's fucking terrible. So what does the synopsis say? As the city is locked down under quarantine, Alice joins a small band of elite soldiers enlisted to rescue the missing daughter of the creator of the mutating T-virus. Oh my god, that's a mouthful. It's a heart-pounding race against time as the group faces off against hordes of bloodthirsty zombies, stealthy lickers, yeah, that's what the creature are called from the first film, lickers, and mutant canines, and the most sinister foe yet. I can't remember what the fucking foe is called. Oh, Nemesis, that's the one. Let's talk about this film. I gave it 1 star. My quote, shit, maybe I was safer outside. Get them guns out of my damn face. Black people will be funny. It's not a very well written film. A movie about a woman fighting an army of zombies in a lockdown city, an escape from New York plot, a badass female cop with an Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider vibe and overall lack of character, an evil government corporation in control of everything, including a 6-foot mutant with an arsenal of machine guns. Yet this is shit? But how? Pretty easy. Poor focus in plot and character, overdone action, strange focuses on slow motion and over-editing, shit horror, and overall not even enough substance to sustain itself as a dumb, fun action horror. Like, it's almost the epitome of the horror version of the Fast and Furious franchise, without anything or anyone solid to stick to, especially since Alice, the main character, dies, and then becomes a superhero in each film, for some fucking reason. This could have been an interesting sequel if it focused itself as a tense survival horror, but instead we get this shitfest of a sequel. Now, I make that comparison to Fast and Furious, but I actually really dig the Fast and Furious films. They're dumb fun, but they're like the perfect amount of dumb and fun. And I like the characters. I actually care about them. The action scenes are fun, and that's how it goes. This franchise should have been the same, but failed in every area. The first film was a pretty decent survival horror film. The second film is like, so we're gonna start with Alice in the city. She's gonna give some exposition from what seems to be some kind of a camcorder, which of course comes into play later. She wakes up in the Raccoon City hospital, of course butt naked, and walks outside to see the apocalypse. But that was the end of the previous film, and this scene doesn't come until later. So what happens first? They go into they go into the hive, which is underneath Raccoon City, and all these zombies start coming out. And of course, then shit starts going wrong in Raccoon City because the zombies are broken out. They're like, oh, these violent rampages of people, and it's clearly zombies eating other fucking people, but no, it's just violent people for some fucking... News is stupid. And everyone's trying to evacuate the city because clearly there's something fucking wrong going on here. And Jill Valentine, our police officer, who seems to have been suspended, is then called in because they're like, all available, like even suspended cops come in to help us because we're dying. So she comes in and her, again, Tomb Raider-esque costume, which is very accurate to the game, I believe. I don't know which game, but one of them. She's also in because the first film didn't have many characters from the actual game. So because of that complaint, they put her in. Because of that complaint, they really focus on Raccoon City, the origin of the T-virus. There is so much shit that they rammed into this film. Nemesis. They shoved it all into this goddamn film because the first film wasn't enough like the game. You know, it didn't have enough references to the game, so you gotta shove all this shit in the sequel. So the sequel, which focuses on Jill Valentine, there's so many characters. It's like, You got the special ops people who went into the city to help kill the zombies, but then they're not getting let out because they've locked up the city now. You've got Jill Valentine trying to find the girl, this guy's daughter, who is trapped herself in a school. You've got Alice, who wakes up and is now a fucking badass. So when the Valentine and this other cop and this reporter girl who has the camcorder are in a church with the fucking liquors, you know, what's if the fucking Alice comes through the window on a bloody motorcycle and kills them all because she's like a superhero now? Then they go to find the girl at the school. They collect her after some more people die, rip the person with the camera who gets killed by literal children, eat her alive. She was a dumbass anyway, I guess. And they end up getting into a helicopter pad. Not to mention the fact that they have to stop to fight Nemesis at one stage, which is a really over-the-top action scene involving Alice, who can fly, and Nemesis, who can fly, despite the fact that he weighs like 200 pounds or whatever, and he also has a Gatling gun. And he's also controlled by a computer, who's controlled by one of the people at Umbrella. You also have this black guy called TJ, I think that's his name. He's cool, I guess. He's like the only funny character in the film. But I guess you need your stereotypical funny black man. Hey, at least he doesn't die in this one. They pretty much all meet up especially after beating Nemesis the first time. More or less they just run away from him, whatever the fuck. They get to the helicopter pad with the girl. This is not how the plot goes. It's just such a messy plot. It's hard to simplify it. And they're about to get on the helicopter when, bam, the big bad guy, the guy who told them all to stay in the city and whatever, he's there and he's trying to escape, which is really weird. Why the fuck is he in the city? He was just outside of it. But then also the British guy on the wheelchair who made the T-Virus, who wanted them to get his daughter, he's also there. And then boom, Nemesis is there. And now they're all being captured. Oh my god, what's going to happen now? Short fight ensues. We find out that Nemesis, as a twist, not really very obvious, very much a very obvious twist, is actually the cop from the previous film after he mutated, because this film loves to fuck you over with flashbacks. You didn't watch the previous one? That's okay. We'll just keep throwing in flashbacks to give Alice some character, but not develop her as a character. Just, like, tell you that she is character. She fights Nemesis. They both realize who they are, and then Nemesis just kind of fucks off. I'll be honest. He kills the bad guys' guards so that the good guys can get into the helicopter and fly away. The bad guy gets onto the helicopter and then they push him off and he gets eaten by zombies. And Nemesis just disappears. So last time we see him for a few more films, I guess. I think he comes back later in the franchise, but I have no idea and I don't really care. And then they fly off, but then they get captured again, and like Alice gets captured and she's in a facility, and I think she dies. Yeah, she dies because something like a metal spike goes towards the young girl, and they need to save her for some reason because she's like got the T-Virus in her body and she's had it for a long time, but like she's also like part of the cure or something. It doesn't matter because she dies off between films. Apparently there's like a deleted part of the script where apparently Alice had killed her because she saves the girl, jumps in front of her, gets stabbed. The bad guys find Alice's body because she's dead, and they revive her. They bring her back to full naked condition. Sorry, did I say naked there? Shit, I guess I did. And she escapes the facility, but it was by design. She gets rescued by her friends, who are dressed up like umbrella people because they're in the middle of a fucking city, and they drive away, and it's the bad guy operates her like she's a robot and stuff. So hence the implication that she ends up killing the daughter, despite the fact that it doesn't matter. Also, they like escape with the T-Virus, like the cure, I think. Pretty sure they do. But they don't have it in the next one, so I don't know what the fuck happens there. But yeah, that's the movie. How would I have fixed it? That's a tricky question. Not really. Fuck Alice. Leave her till later. You don't need the opening scene of her, waking up in the hospital, being programmed to wake up and all that bullshit. I don't need that crap. Firstly, start with Jill Valentine. She's your main character. Focus on her throughout the whole entire fucking movie. Yeah, sure, maybe you get the stuff with the kid, but you don't need the whole opening of, oh, we're getting everyone out of here. No. We don't need to focus on the guy in the wheelchair. We don't need to focus on the girl. What we want to focus on is Jill Valentine. She's a disgraced cop in the middle of what's starting to become a zombie apocalypse. They call her in to get her to help out. And shit goes haywire. In the first 10 minutes, they've locked down the whole fucking city, and she has to run away with this with her other cop comrade. She's with the journalist as well. They go to the church, and that's where, because they're trying to hide out there, whatever, from the zombies. Maybe that's where the fucking lickers come in. Sure, whatever. Maybe they kill them. Maybe they just run away. I don't really know. I'm trying to think of a good point for Alice to actually come into the film. But not now. They should deal with the lickers by themselves, so they can show that they can still defend themselves against these fucking creatures. They get out of the church, whatever. Phone rings. What's this? Oh, it's that British guy who made the T-virus. He's like, my daughter is trapped in this school. I need you to save her. And they're like, well, what do we get out of it? And she's like, I'll get you the fuck out of here. So they go to the school. Camera girl gets killed. They find the daughter. They get the fuck out. Suddenly, I guess maybe you because if you still introduce TJ at this point, early in the film with them, you could still have his things. He goes to that little facility with all the those special ops people. They all get killed off, whatever. And so at some stage, he runs into. Oh no, he also gets a phone call to save the girl. They all meet at the school. They get out of the school. Boom. Nemesis is there. And you're like, what the fuck? But Nemesis isn't after them. He's after the guys, the special ops dudes, who's like that guy from the Mummy films. So that's when you introduce them. Because I don't really think I need that cool scene of them jumping down off the helicopter and saving the girl who's already been bitten. I'm like, I don't care about that. Like, sure, it shows that they care to rescue the people, but it's their job. They don't act like... You can include that scene if you want to, but I don't really think it's necessary. This is maybe the first time... Maybe they've gone down to save the girl. So this is literally their first scene. They've gone down to save the girl. She kills herself. But then suddenly they turn around to heavy gunfire. Boom, Nemesis is dead. And you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And then you get, from Nemesis' point of view... He's trying to kill these guys. So again, you already know who Nemesis is because he was established a bit earlier with the TJ scene. That's actually not a bad scene. So now Nemesis is after these two guys because these two are good guys. They're trying to save this girl. But so that establishes these guys are good guys. You need to root for them as well. It's like suddenly you're like, oh my god, there's more characters. What the fuck? His mate gets killed off by Nemesis. And just after his mate gets killed off, Alice comes in. Boom. She's on a motorbike. She comes in and starts shooting the fuck out of Nemesis. Because she recognizes Nemesis as a mutant part of the Umbrella Corporation program and all that shit. So she's been hunting him down. Jill Valentine and stuff are still watching. They want to run away, but the special ops guy ends up getting off the building, whatever, meets up with them. They're like, quick, come with us, because like there may be a hoarding of zombies because of all the noise and whatever. And they run away together and we leave the other two alone. We leave Nemesis and Alice to fight without seeing what the conclusion is. Cut to a bit later, these guys are trying to, they're scavenging for food because they need to eat something, but then they find out that, maybe the scene where they're in the bus, this talk about how, this place is going to go nuclear, so it's like, well, they can't rest up for too long, but they just waited for it to get quiet. Then Alice shows up. And they're like, so who the fuck are you and what the hell's going on? Then you get some of her exposition, whatever. Maybe someone's filming it, so you've still got that opening scene. You can still get, that exposition into it. Like, Umbrella did this and whatever. So at least if you haven't watched the previous film, you get the exposition now. Or at least the main characters get the exposition. And then they go to the helicopter to try and get the fuck out. You know, they get a phone call. You got to go through this sewerage area. So instead of it being a graveyard where zombies that get arisen, which is a cool idea, but also dumb as fuck because it doesn't make any sense. And they have a scene where these zombies come up from the graves, but it's like how like in the previous film it's established that the T virus can only affect living tissue. So if you're already in a box in the ground, it can't affect you. Anyway, they go through the sewers. Very reminiscent of the first film. But instead of them getting split up or anything, they actually make it out alive. Maybe they lose a guy in the meantime. Maybe, the other cop dies or whatever. So you'd still lose someone. Now Jill Valentine's upset. Alice is there. Jill Valentine is there. The guy from the Mummy, TJ, and the girl. They get out, and all they have to do is climb this building and get to the thing. So maybe there's an action scene there. You got more lickers. So now you got to fight them inside a building. You get to the top of the building after killing all the lickers, and boom, there you go. There's your helicopter. But twist, the guy in the wheelchair's been there the whole time, same as the bad guys. He was actually a good guy, and he wanted his daughter out. But the best way to help the bad guys out was to get them to save the girl and lure them to the thing. So they are bait. And then Nemesis, and then so she goes. They get arrested. There's the confrontation that they have and whatever, and then Nemesis shows up. Then you get the twist that Nemesis was the cop the whole time from the first film. So it's not a perfect resolution. You know, they still have pretty much the same ending scene and whatever, and they get the fuck out of there. You don't need Alice gets killed and all that bullshit. I don't think it's necessary. Obviously, the disabled guy getting killed, sure, whatever. I think his daughter probably should get killed as well, because it's like, instead of it being like, oh, then what's the point of them having saved her if she gets killed? It's like, well, that's also the point in itself. It's a fucking apocalypse. It's meant to be more nihilistic, because there was no... The point of them saving her was a trap anyway, so it didn't matter. In the long term, it didn't matter if her surviving or not, because she's not actually relevant to the story. She's pretty much a red herring to get other characters together. So, yeah, and then they all run away, or whatever the fuck. That's how I probably would have fixed it. At least it's a bit better. It's not, obviously, if I had more time to think about it, what I would have done. There's probably a lot more that they could have done. It could have been a much better film, more tighter, focused on Jill Valentine as a character, her as a disgraced cop, her trying to bring down the corporation. So yeah, maybe they released a video. That's her final stand. Like, you know, this umbrella people fucked over my business. They fucked over my city. This is what they're gonna get. But then, nope, all the video stuff gets uploaded and everyone calls it a hoax. But then you get to the third film. Resident Evil Extinction is a 2007 film directed by Russell Mulcahy, who has directed a few other films in his time, which are all pretty much terrible. He did do Highlander, but he also did do Highlander 2. He did Razorback, which I actually have, and The Shadow as well. God, he's done 29 films? Wow. Oh, he's an Australian film director, born in Melbourne. Interesting. So what's the plot of this film? Five actually, years after the Raccoon City catastrophe, survivors travel the Nevada desert, hoping to make it to Alaska. Alice joins the caravan in their fight against the hordes of zombies and the evil Umbrella Corp. Yeah, no, that's actually pretty accurate. My quote, so I gave this film 2 stars. My quote, climb the Eiffel Tower with a high-powered rifle. A few years ago that would have caused a stir. Well, let the good times roll. More characters we don't care about, another apocalyptic premise, this time Mad Max, and a narrative that is pretty much nothing by the end of its runtime. What is the purpose of this film? Like, outside of money, what's the narrative purpose? Alice learns nothing, the other characters we meet mostly die, including the ones we liked from the previous films, that being the black guy, is he called TJ? There's not many black guys in this franchise. LJ. And the guy from the Mummy. Yeah, they both die. The only characters you really give a shit about die. And then there is no character arc or big revelation outside of Alice clones, which is kind of pretty much it's not explicitly mentioned in the previous film, but kind of is enough because they got enough genetic experiments, so it's like, yeah, it makes sense. So it's not a big, oh my god kind of moment that they're probably hoping people would think of. Like, sure, this is better than Apocalypse, but at least that film had a point and themes and shit. This one is just bland with the extra taste of sand, and we all hate sand. It's coarse and it's rough and all that shit. Also, like, this is basically the characters from the previous film, but in a Mad Max setting with homages to other horror films like The Birds and Day of the Dead, but that doesn't make this film special, it just makes it less original. There is really nothing to say about Extinction. It's exactly as it is. It's just, they're just in the desert, because apparently the T-virus in 5 years has spread across the world and killed everything and turned all the forests into deserts and all that bullshit. So it's mostly just set all in the daytime. There's only a few scenes in the dark, which are usually just in buildings and the underground facility. It's pretty much cut into three parts. Like, you focus on Alice doing her own thing, where she's, just casually superhero person for no reason. Did I mention how at the end of the previous film, when she was escaping, she could look through the camera, the CCTV camera, and made the security guard bleed to death? Yeah, weird. So this film is about her on the road, just doing stuff for no reason. And then there's a caravan of people led by a woman who apparently is from the games. Her apparent thing in the games is she's looking for a brother, but in this one, she's looking for Alaska, but not really, because she just discovers... Actually, Alice discovers a book that says that Alaska might be safe. So she gives it to those characters when she ends up finding them, because they get attacked. Like, they're like in a caravan of people, so like, there's a bus full of kids, there's a big oil tanker, all this kind of shit. And that's where a few of our characters from the previous film were left off. Of course, there's no Jill Valentine, she's gone. She's not dead, she's just not there. And the girl that they saved in the previous film is just not mentioned at all. She apparently was killed off between films, but they don't mention her at all, so obviously she's not important. And they get to a parking spot where suddenly all these crows attack, because it's the birds, get it, it's a reference, and they're zombified birds, because they've been eating rotten flesh in the desert, as you do. So they all get attacked, but then Alice comes in, bam, look at that, she uses her superpowers to make the fire from a flamethrower kill all the birds. And then they escape, they're running low on fuel, so they go to Las Vegas, which is covered in sand. They're like, oh my god, how is it covered in sand? It's like, well, obviously because no one's been maintaining it, because it's a city that's literally in the fucking desert. And then they get attacked, because it's kind of a trap, by a bunch of zombies that are particularly there, that are a bit more stronger than the regulars. A lot of people get killed off, and then, this is where LJ turns into a zombie fully, because he was bitten a bit earlier in the film, and our mummy dude gets bitten here by LJ, damn it, and they follow the main bad guy, because they have the power, the main bad guys have the power to turn Alice off and on again. They've been tracking her with satellites and shit. They use a satellite to turn her off, but then she fights against the programming because she's, I don't know, it's weird. She helps to kill off the rest of the zombies, finds where the main bad guys are hiding on a rooftop, kills most of them. The main guy gets away in a helicopter, they follow a helicopter. Meanwhile, the whole entire rest of the film has been showing this guy in a facility underground, experimenting with Alice clones. So they recreate the scene from the opening scene from the first film. Well, not the opening scene with Alice. And he's just been doing experiments on zombies and shit. There's your Day of the Dead reference, because he's been making them try to be more humanized and shit. And Alice and whatever follow him back to his base. They blow up the zombies outside. All the rest of the people get in a helicopter and fly off to Alaska. And Alice goes into the base. And then it's in complete disarray, because our main bad guy was bitten by a more superpowered zombie and tried to cure himself of the T-virus cure, and ended up turning himself into another creature, which I think is called Tyrant, or something. They never mention it in the film, but it's like because the virus is actually called T-virus, so tyrant virus, so or some shit. Thank you, IMDb trivia. And they end up. He fights Alice. The White Queen tells Alice what to do to some degree. Alice wakes up one of her clones, and then the clone dies just because. But then the clone wakes up again and then turns on the laser thingy and in that chamber of the lasers. Remember the first film? Yeah. And kills the bad guy, chops him up in little pieces. And then they are together and safe and they confront the holographic versions of the bad guys that are in Tokyo saying, yeah, we're coming for you next, bitch. And then there's a whole army of Alice clones. And that's the end of the movie. Yeah, I do not care about these movies at all. I was figuring if I'm going to watch them, I might as well talk about them, despite no one will watch this video, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, look, these films are pretty meh. The first film is decent. I like it. It's not bad. Second film is a fucking nightmare. It's terrible to watch. The third film is fine. It's just pointless. I just hope the next three films at least have something to give me. Like, come on. I know I'm not going to get a resolution to the narrative, but I just want something else. So, I haven't watched the fourth film for a long time, if I've ever watched it at all. So I'm interested to watch the next three, because I don't think I've watched the final two. Definitely haven't watched the final one. But I'm interested to watch them, to see how it goes, and all that shit. Yeah. It's hard to review these films, because it's like, look, as horror films, they're pretty stock standard zombie shit, pretty meh. And as action films, they become more and more over the top. The third film, they aimed for it to be the bloodiest of the franchise, and it's very bloody, but it's just an overindulgence of being bloody, and it just becomes unnecessary, because it's mostly CGI blood anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, not much to say. So, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys, hopefully, in the second part, where I talk about the third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth film. Or just watch me kind of wilt away as I try to deal with these fucking movies. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this kind of relaxed talk, I have a whole playlist up there where I talk about this kind of stuff. Usually I'm more enthusiastic, but just not with these ones. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time. I hope the new Raccoon City film is actually going to be better. But I don't really care. But it's horror.